Today on Cryptic Mass Guitar, we do the inaugural edition of the guitar high gain off between the Gibson Les Paul Standard 60s and the Gibson SG Standard 61. Both of these have the same pickups in it. So first and foremost here, this is a YouTube video. So you're going to be able to hear this guitar against this guitar, and you might be able to hear some differences. It's a high gain shootout, so the differences are definitely going to be negligible. This is a little more body to it, this has a little more high end to it, and it has a lot to do with the bodies itself. But you're going to be able to hear things. You're not going to be able to reach through the screen and actually play these. So if you want to buy either of these guitars, go to the store and try them out. And while you're there, try a whole bunch of other guitars. See which one speaks to you the most, because in the world of guitars, for some reason, people don't realize this, but it's 90% feel, 10% sound. So let's go over the rundown, shall we? We've got two sound samples that have leads built into them. After that, I switch over to this left and this right in a stereo recording. That way you can hear both guitars at the same time. After which, I switch over to 4 different amps very quickly, like minute-long sound samples with each. And then after that, I show you something that, for some reason, a lot of people overlook when it comes to sound differences, and something that you could be getting rather than, buying a new guitar that'll completely change your sound overall. So let's start out with those 2 sound samples that have leads. Now that we've heard the first 2 sound samples, we're not going to be playing any leads anymore. But one thing when I make these videos, or these type of videos, I usually hear, wow, both of them would sound good together, or I wonder what both of them would sound like played together. So here's this left and this right. And as well, whenever I make these type of videos, I usually get the comment of, why didn't you use this amp? Or why didn't you use that amp? Or I wish you used more amps. So here's 4 more different amps. Okay, so I did make a promise at the start of the video to show you something about sound differences other than guitars itself, that about 95% of people out there overlook. And it's rather simple, but I'll give you the scenario. So here's the scenario. Say you own this Les Paul. You own this Les Paul, it's great. You play live, your other guitar player has a Les Paul, but you kind of feel like you want to change things up a little. You want to have a little bit of a different sound to differentiate you from the other guitar player. So naturally, what you do, I do this too because I'm just crazy about guitars, is you go, I'm going to buy another guitar, and you go out and buy this guitar. So you now have two guitars that have the exact same pickups in them. There is a sound difference. This has more body, this has a little more top end to it, and it's missing the amount of body that this has. Has to do with the fact that there's a whole heck of a lot more wood in this than in this. But the best thing that you could have done is actually look at changing either your speakers or buying a completely different cabinet. A lot of people watch these videos going, this is the Les Paul, here's what it sounds like, here's the Gibson, the SG, here's what the SG sounds like. And they'll rack their brains over what the differences are. The differences are generally negligible. The difference between sound is more important to the guitar player than the listener. And usually it's those little tiny little sound differences that make us very happy. But here's both of these guitars. So I'll still play this, and then I'll play this back to back, so you can hear the differences. But then I'm going to actually, because this whole video is using the Mesa cabinet with the custom 90s, let's use 5 cabinets. And let's see if there's more of a difference between these two guitars or different cabinets. So as you heard, the difference, there's more of a difference in sound in the cabinets than there are between both guitars. Guitar, 90% feel, 10% sound. For some reason, it's really hard to get that through when, you've grown up thinking because we're obsessed with guitars, right? So we always think, this guitar is going to do, is going to sound different than this guitar so much, and all of these different things. Changing your amp or changing your cabinet is going to make an even bigger sound difference. Okay, so that's it for all of the different sound samples. I'm not going to be playing anymore. I don't want to make the end of this video like a huge long talking thing. Some people enjoy that when it comes to the comparison videos, but I hate hearing myself talk, basically. And I tend to yammer when it comes to guitars. So I do want to quickly talk about the specs, and then I want to talk about how they kind of feel and stuff like that when you're playing them, at least seated. So both of these have the 61R and the 61T, which are now called the 60s burst buckers. They're both hand soldered with the orange drop capacitors. Now, unless you're dialing back on your tone, which is something you should be doing, it gives you a greater control at certain points. Those capacitors don't actually come into the signal. Both have mahogany necks with the bound rosewood board and the trapezoid inlays. This has the slim taper neck, whereas this has the 60s slim taper neck. So it's sort of like a cross between a 60s blade style neck and the 59 medium C. So it's just a little bit thicker than the slim taper neck here. When it comes to the tuners, we've got Grover tuners on the Les Paul for some reason, even though it should be the Vintage Deluxe, and then we have Vintage Deluxe on the SG. There's not much difference between both of these. A lot of it has to do with how they feel when you're actually turning them. There's a slight difference in feel. The Grovers as well, you can adjust the buttons, so you can actually sort of make it harder to turn them or looser to turn them. But the biggest difference overall is the body. So this is a slab of mahogany that has carving to it. So it's a two-piece mahogany body. Congratulations if you think you have a one-piece mahogany body. It happens every now and then through Gibson USA, but they'll even admit they're generally two pieces, and they're super, super good at hiding the seams. Then the Les Paul here is generally two pieces of mahogany, same thing, and a two-piece carved maple top. So a slab of mahogany and a two-piece carved maple top. The amount of wood will change how it feels to you and have a slight change in the sound. This is the big difference here. So when you're playing it seated and playing it standing up as well, there's a difference. This is a lot heavier. It's body heavy rather than neck heavy. So we have a carve here for your lap and then a carve here for your boobie. It's sort of natural and stuff like that. And the carve on the body itself is in a completely different. So the amount of body that you have here, this part is different. You have nice access here to your volume and tone. It's on the bottom and kind of over here. And then your toggle switch is in the up position, so you can kind of do flicking and stuff like that. Your access to the 22nd fret actually goes into the body. It's rather easy to do. It may take some people a little bit of practice to get there, but not very, very much. If you're playing it seated and letting it go, it may slip a little bit because the body is very heavy. The SG is super, super light in comparison. We still have the lap carve and the boobie carve, although they're in like a different spot than the Les Paul. And then your volume and tone, sort of in the same spot, a little further down. And your toggle switch is down here. So if you're used to flicking up, sometimes when you play Les Pauls for a long time, you go to flick that toggle switch up to the neck position, and it's just not there. It's down here. Your access to the 22nd fret, that is it's still technically in the body, but it's actually pushed forward a lot. So because of that, a lot of people sort of forget this about SGs. Your whole entire neck is like 1.5 inches or 2 or so inches pushed away from you. So if you're going to play, like if you were going to play on a Les Paul, this is where the 22nd fret would be. On an SG, it's up here. Another thing to note, SGs were actually designed with a tremolo system in mind. So there's supposed to be a lot more weight on this body to balance it. So that means if you let go, it will dive forward. Some people just absolutely think for some reason that it will, you know, blow a kneecap out or something like that. If you're playing this standing up, do not use a nylon strap. Use a leather strap with some good grip. That means, you know, from a nylon strap to a nice leather strap. A nylon strap might cost you $7 or $8. A leather one might cost you $18. I know it's highway robbery, but we can all grow up and say when it comes to SGs that don't have tremolo systems, there's going to be neck dive unless you use a good leather strap. So that's it for the inaugural edition of the high gain off for guitar. This is just a format that I've been doing recently because I just wanted to change things up. I felt that, especially for like the high gain shootouts for amps that I was doing, there was a lot missing, and you're only doing 2 sound samples, and you know, some people want to hear more. And it kind of leaves out that whole issue when it comes to cabinets. So most people can expect to hear a certain thing a certain way, and then they get that amp and they don't have the same cabinet, so they have these speakers rather than those speakers, and it's something that's really overlooked. I wanted to incorporate that in the guitar video because that's, for some reason, that's always our first thought. I want to change up my sound. I need a new guitar, which is, there's nothing wrong with getting a new guitar, but that's something that's overlooked by about 95% of people, and it's very important that you know, consider those things. Me personally, I have 6 4x12s. Well, sorry, I have 5 4x12s right now. I have one that I've ordered, and I'm just waiting on it with cream backs and stuff like that. So the reason I have those is so I can get the different sounds, because this whole channel and everything I do is recording based rather than, you know, going out and playing live. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and there's still going to be people going like, why didn't you use this amp? Why didn't you use that amp? So it is what it is. Thanks for watching.